videos, I'm going to teach you how to play Have a Drink on Me by AC/DC. You can get the tab for all this music for free on my website, jacksguitarlessons.com. Just go to the page called Free Stuff. You can get the video and the tab. I'm going to have 4 videos for this song. In this first video, I'll go over the different parts and also a little bit about how to read the tab and the symbols you'll find there. The second video is going to be breaking the solo apart into different phrases or licks and doing them multiple times. This is great for practicing the solo when you're putting it together. Video number 3 is going to be the solo in its entirety. I will play it at a couple different speeds. And finally, video number 4 will be the entire song, rhythm and solo, played at a slowed down speed. As always, whichever of the videos you're playing along to, if you need things slowed down, YouTube will allow you to do that. You should always do things at the speed that's right for you. You can always speed things up over time. Now, let's get to it. On page 1, we have our main riff to the song. And one thing I wanted to explain here is something called a slur. You'll notice on the tab there are a couple spots where there's a little mini number, a slide line, and a larger number. These two things are attached to one stem. This is called a slur. The opening note or notes, depending on how you want to look at it, the 7 to 9 is meant to be a slur. So the wrong way to do this initial slur at the opening of the song would be to give both notes rhythmic value like this. We heard the 7 and the 9 as separate things because of the way I timed that. But if you slur it, as you should, it'll sound like one thing blended together into one rhythm. Blah. Like this. Yeah. So what follows has a couple more slurs. After that long pause, you get to the repeated section on page 1. You slur up to 9. And you slur back to 7. And actually you slurred and you followed that with a pull off. So it's a real slippery move there, but it's essential to get all the notes out in time. There is one more slur in this part, and it's at the beginning of line 2, and I didn't write these numbers mini, but you will notice they're at the bottom of one stem. There are 2 5s and a 6 hammered onto. It's this thing. So again, the wrong way to do that is to give both things rhythmic value, like this. We want to blend that rhythmically. We want to slur it. Blah. So you'll notice on that part of the riff that I'll be slurring that too. One thing that I didn't put in the tab because I thought it made the tab too messy. There's a note that we keep coming across in the riff, and it's that note. It's the minor third of the key you're in. And when this appears in solos and riffs, it's usually bent with a blues bend. The normal marking for that is an arrow and a 1/4 sign. Like I said, I didn't put this in there, but you'll notice every time I come across this note here at the 5th fret, 3rd string, I'll tweak it a little. I'll blues bend it. The keys always to this blues bend are that it's not very far and it's delayed. It's a way to make the note cry. You're not instantly changing the note. You're just squeezing a little bit of crying sound into the note. It's hard to put into words, but that's how I think of it. Alright, now I'm going to play from the beginning of the song down to the beginning of line 3. There is a repeated section there. You can see the repeat symbols, and it says 3 times. So I'll be doing that. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. There's a D5 chord that comes up in this part and will come back throughout the song. What I mean by this, I want a rock D, and what I'm shooting for and what's in the tab is open, open, 2, and 3. A real thick sounding D chord. Now I'm purposely not playing the first string or the sixth string. If you played a regular D and played the first string, it wouldn't hurt much, but you'll notice I won't play that. I'll play this stripped down with some extra bass strings in it version of D. Alright, here it is, lines 1 through 3. 2, 3, oh. Okay, next we're going to go to the next parts on page 1. We're basically playing the riff we opened the song with. There's a twist though. You'll notice on the music there is a repeated section with repeat symbols around it, and there's also a bracket 1, bracket 2. These are endings, and it's important to understand this when you're reading music. We're going to play the repeated section with the first ending. We're going to hit the repeat, go back to the facing repeat, come through the song again, and this time replace the first ending with the second ending. So that's the key thing. Endings are always done one or the other, never back to back. Here we go. I'm starting 2 measures into line 3 on page 1, and I'm going up to the double line near the end of page 1. And I'll be doing the part with the first and second ending. Here we go. The next part is the verse riff. The vocals come in here. Some details about this. We're going to be hammering on that open A string and combining that with other notes. One thing that will bring this riff to life is when you're playing just the open 5th string, put a nice palm mute down on it. That's the blade of your hand. When you're playing the parts that are 2 notes, pop your hand off so those jump out and they're not muted. You might also notice that this part is the same thing 4 times. Why didn't I just write repeats and say 4 times? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, I have the lyrics in, so we needed the space to put the lyrics. But another thing that's going on in this song is even though our part is the same, the band is going to be changing chords behind us. I wanted that to be reflected in the music, so you'll notice above our repeating riff, you'll see A5, which is A power chord, G5, G power chord, and that's telling you what the band's doing. So when you play with the recording, you will hear things changing behind you while you keep playing the same riff. This brings up another thing. About midway down page 2, we have G5, a rock G, AC/DC, and a lot of other bands, but AC/DC loves to do this a lot. Just a rock G with a muted 5th string. Holding 2 notes up top, of course our bass note, a muted 5th string, and you just slam the thing. And it just sounds good if you have distortion to play your G this way. Another reason you pare it down and get rid of this finger is a lot of times this chord is going to appear in a riff, and a lot of times the riffs are easier to move through when they have that one less note. let's talk about picking. I think most of this song is heavy down picking. You know, you want to really dig in for a song like this. But on page 2, there are a couple places where we're going to use some alternate picking on our chords. Anytime you see a 16th note mark, you want to give it a down up. That's going to happen on a few of these chord punches here. That, the G5 I was just talking about, is going to get a down up down. You'll notice that when I put the part together here in a minute. Alright, that's it. Let's play a big chunk now. It's going to be the verse. It's starting at the bottom line of page 1 at the double line, and we're going all the way up to near the end of page 2 where the chorus comes in. Here we go. 2, 3. Near the bottom of page 2, we hit our first chorus. You might notice this is just what we did on page 1, except that it has vocals over it. We have got that first and second ending situation again. After we do the actual chorus, there will be a little connecting part that's in between the chorus and the second verse. This is a part that only happens once. It's the middle part of page 3. And now I'm going to play the chorus plus that connecting part. 2, 3, oh. Right after that connecting part that I just played, there's something that you should know about if you don't already. It's a musical direction called DSL Coda. DSL Coda, there are 2 parts to that. The DS part of it tells you to go back to the sign. The sign looks like an S with 2 dots and a line through it. In this music, it's on page 1. So DSL Coda tells you to go back to the sign and then keep your eyes peeled for something that says to Coda and has a little bullseye looking symbol. That appears partway down page 3 after we hit the second chorus. When you hit that, you connect up your to Coda with the little bullseye to the Coda, which is a bigger bullseye. That appears a couple lines down the page on page 3. So to put that back together, DSL Coda means go to the sign, play to the to Coda, and then jump to the Coda. That means after you hit the second chorus, you're going right into the guitar solo. I'm not going to go over the guitar solo in this video. There are separate videos for that. There's one where I'll break the thing apart into licks, and there's one where I'll put the whole thing together. So check that out if you're interested in the solo. That means we can skip to page 5. We're getting close to the end of the song now. There are several repeated parts here. We've got a part that says 2 times, a part that says 3 times, a little 2-bar section after that, and then a part that says 7 times. Okay, now I'm going to play the first 3 lines of page 5 with all the repeats that are supposed to be done. Here we go. Page 5. 3. Oh. all 7, but you get the idea. We're in the home stretch. At the end here, we start with a couple of unison bends. They're called unison bends because you have an A note and you have a note that you're bending to A. So you get the sound of 2 out of tune notes going into tune. At the top of that bend, you should have 2 identical notes. Another thing you'll see here is called a gliss. I think the word is actually glissando. I write it as an X and a line. It just means a dramatic sound, usually done on the 6th string, somewhere up high, not any specific fret usually, and in this case I would say not any specific fret, just somewhere up high around the 15th, 17th fret. It's not important. What's important is the sound. Something like that. Another thing that's going to happen at the end, you'll notice on my tab I put in parentheses free time. There is a point where the drums stop and you can't really count things, and it's really hard to play along to the recording. You just have to be on your toes. They're in free time. There's not strict time going on there for a while. So that's all that means. When you hit the free time part, the first lick you'll hear is this. And there's plenty of delay on that too, so it makes it sound even more complicated. After that, we're going to get a series of bends. Now at the very end of the song, to cap things off, there's a really killer lick. And a lot of rock songs have these type of licks. These licks where an awesome guitar player was just going for it. They're very chaotic, they're very hard to transcribe, they're very hard to reproduce. Recently, I've decided to stop trying to nail what the original guitar player did on these type of licks, because if I was in a band, I wouldn't do that. I would get something close with the important elements, but I would probably play something that's more logical. I would try to play something fast so it sounds the same, but we need something more logical and defined to hang our hat on. So that's what I have at the end here. I looked at accurate transcriptions of this song, and I just decided that it wasn't going to do anyone any good to try to play what's on the record exactly. So instead we have a compromise here. This I muffed that a little bit, but even that would have sounded cool if I was playing this in a band. It's the right scale, it's the right key notes, it's about the right amount of time, and it's also important usually that it starts and ends the same. The stuff in between, as long as it's the right scale, it usually works. Here we go with the ending.